call to order the Clarksburg School Committee meeting Thursday, March 5th, 2020 at 5:06 p.m. Is there any public comment? Minutes from the last meeting, did you get a chance to?
I did have a chance to review them. I have no questions at this time regarding the minutes from the last meeting. It all looks good.
The only thing I was going to ask if it should be changed, I think it says in here, which is very minor, but the Chowder Fest is North Adams, not Northampton.
Oh, did I write Northampton? I'm sorry.
I thought it was Northampton.
Totally missed that.
We can just amend that.
Okay.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from February 6th, Clarksburg School Committee meeting.
All in favor?
Yes.
I would just suggest that for the FY21 budget, I didn't have to wait till Laura gets here. We just table that until she gets here, then we can go into that session once she arrives.
Okay. Did you get a chance to review the financial statement?
Yes, I did.
Any discussion?
No questions on that either. Make a motion to approve the financial statement.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes. It's a little strange with two people.
Am I up?
You're up.
Wow, all right. Here's a hard copy of the report, and then I'm just going to do a visual walk, friends. Won't be long. Let's see. Okay. I just want to fill you in on professional development. In February, I was not here for professional development when teachers worked. I was at my last Research for Better Teaching class, which is now over, which was about professional culture in the building, and which was very valuable and a good use of my time. And just on my own professional development, I also went to the Principal Advisory Cabinet last week. So that was a third of 4 sessions from the state, where I'm involved in looking at professional development across the state and what their next moves are. So those are the 2 things I did while I was out. Staff here did professional development, and it was led by staff, which is always really great because that's what we want. We want teachers working together in their own professional learning path. One thing that they did was focus on MCAS preparation because 'tis the season. We're about to enter into MCAS testing starting in April. So in order to prepare teachers from K to 8, even the K to 2 teachers, went on, well, let me back up. There's 3 big things in preparation: technology, tools, and I think just thinking about the test and what it entails. So teachers got together, and one of the things they did is they looked at practice tests together, and they actually took the tests. So they took 20 to 30 minutes of their time that afternoon, and they logged on. There's an open resource where teachers can go and use these tools with students. So one thing that we wanted to do on the technology end was make sure that students were taking this tutorial to learn all the tools that they had to know how to use online, because this is an online testing system, and they're always coming out with new tools like a magnifier or some new piece of the equation editor or something that they have to use. We want to make sure that students always know well in advance of the test what these tools are. So teachers could go here and look at the tools. They could click online, and this is live right here. You can go on and you can kind of see some of the things that they actually went through, where it walks you through looking at how to navigate through this system. And this is what it looks like, just in case you're curious. Students can bookmark questions. They have tools like rulers that they can drag and pull to questions. They can use this calculator online. There's a notepad if they want to take notes while they're doing questions. So these are all tools that we want to make sure students we want to make sure teachers know how to use them. We want to make sure that students are practicing using these before the test because we don't want the technology to interfere with them demonstrating what they know. So this was one thing that we made sure we wanted to do. Then teachers logged on and they took a test. So they took one of the practice tests. So you can go on, you can pick which practice test that you want to take and log in. And again, it gets you right in there where you're seeing exactly what it looks like for students. Why is this important? Because we want to make sure, again, that we're all very clear about the types of questions that students are going to encounter and how that looks for them. Presentation shouldn't interfere with their ability to perform. I think the other thing that was eye-opening for teachers, and since we have our kindergarten teacher, maybe you can speak to this too, just even for the K-2, seeing what third graders have to do. I think most of you all took the third grade test, and it was eye-opening.
Extremely.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the best word to describe that. I mean, I had never seen the test, ever, and
Well, this is a practice test. Yeah.
but yes.
We're not
But
religious.
knowing that seeing the lines and how they will go back and refer to that, I mean, I knew of it, but to see it and practice it and do it, it was really enlightening.
So there's a series of questions that you can go on and go through and see what kinds of questions they ask, how they refer to the paragraphs, why they're numbered. Practice using the tools when you're in the math test so you know how students have to actually navigate this. We had never taken the time in our professional development afternoons to actually sit down and do the test. So I had hoped that, teachers were always, hi Laura, we're in here. Had been doing this in their own time. K-2 teachers, like Kathy just mentioned, hadn't done this because our focus, for MCAS is always 3 through 8. But I think it was a really useful exercise for all teachers to be able to engage in this and have the time and space to look at this and think about it. So after that, teachers were able to come up with plans about how they were going to help their students go through these tools online, learn how to use them. Many students know how to use them because they used them in previous years, but our third graders, it's going to be the first time that they're looking at these tools. Use some practice tests to guide them through questions to just make sure they know how to navigate and they know how to find a certain paragraph or get used to the formatting of the test. And the other big piece was technology. We had our IT director here on the Monday after the break, and we all did we did the tutorial of the tools together and seeing how our system handles everyone being online at the same time, which Chromebooks are not working correctly or which ones are missing keys or anything like that. So in coming together as a school to make sure we have a dry run of going through some of this online is an important part of preparation. We don't teach to a test, but we definitely prepare students for a test. And it would be unfair not to prepare them. So our practice tests are like scrimmages before a big game. This is what it feels like. What do you learn from it? How do you deal with it? Do you have any questions about this piece that teachers were engaged in? We did our first round of practice tests, and the practice tests are only 14-ish questions, 15 maybe.
Yeah, 14 for the ELA. I think it was 16 for math for third grade.
Right. So that's all they're doing. And again, it's just to get used to it. We did ELA last week, we did math this week, and I think we've learned a lot of things. We learned which students may need separate settings because of some anxieties that pop up for them or things that we hadn't flagged before. So it's really useful to go through these exercises and see where they are.
It's a good point you made too, is having that experience with knowing our kids and knowing our, what they, teachers know the students best of where they excel and where they have struggles. So being able to teach them those problem-solving strategies because we have a better understanding of what the expectations are for the kids is very important. For the teachers to have that knowledge in their toolkit so they can bring that to the students and help to, ease some of their anxiety about taking this assessment. And that's one thing I always worry about as a as a principal, as a superintendent, is making sure that we're not causing any undue stress and anxiety for our kids by taking these state-required assessments. So being able to, one of the good, I think, pieces of the new test with being online is that the principal does have the discretion of, it's not just based on an IEP who gets to go to a separate testing location if we feel that's something that the student really requires or needs to be successful. So I think that's important, and it's great to see the background work that that Tara and the entire faculty and staff are going through to make sure the kids are prepared and just ready to do their best. That's all. That's all we ask, is do their best and show how much they've learned this year and all the improvement they made, and and that's what this is. Because to me, that's what it's good for, to show where the kids' strengths are, where their challenges are, and so we can target our instruction to help them continue to make that improvement. I think the staff here does a great job of that.
Agree, 100%. It was a great activity, and again, I wasn't there to lead this. It was led by staff going through, leading each other on how to go into these practice tests, how to, what resources we were going to use. So it was, I really like those moments when, you've got a really wonderful staff when you could leave and everybody keeps doing, the high caliber work that they do all the time. So kudos. Just some things in the teaching and learning bucket. I just want to make you aware that it was Read Across America Day on Monday, and we had some special activities. I have a little picture gallery here for you to just see some of the things. We had some guest readers. This is actually our art teacher who's reading a book that was written by Jamie Hall's uncle about art, which was a really neat connection. So Erica, the art teacher, read this to students in class. They're all wearing their jammies. Mrs. Howell had her crazy socks on. We don't have a picture of that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The K-2 wing had students find, I don't have my notes with me, matching words, rhyming words.
Yep.
Okay. And they did this throughout the whole wing, so kindergartners were finding second graders or whoever it was that had their matching rhyming word, and they were all out in the hallways and all over the place in their jammies again, trying to find their matching rhyming partners. So there was a lot of really fun activities on that day to celebrate reading. Also on my notes is the robotics competition that's coming up. I just want to make you aware of it. It's March 21st. And Kim Parker, whose room we're in right now, who has a new carpet, which we'll talk about later. It's actually, I didn't even have to take a picture because if you turn around, it's right there. I didn't know we were going to be in this room. So students have been working really hard creating this town, this Lego town where these Lego figures move all over the place and do different actions. And they will be going to Lenox High School on March 21st and competing against other Berkshire County schools in this competition. I believe students in grades 5 and 6 are involved, and they've been meeting regularly throughout the year and working on this, and this is a really exciting thing coming up. I want to mention that there's a reading workshop happening across the hall in 45 minutes. I wish this were a live camera because I would say, hey parents, get on out here. Kim Rougeau is offering a workshop for parents around reading, and this is a nice tie-in to Read Across America Week to help parents know what they can do at home to nurture this love of reading, of helping students develop those fluency skills. So there's giveaway prizes tonight, some books and book lamps, and great resources for parents to use. We open this up to schools across our union, so it's open to Savoy and Florida and Rowe, and we hope to see parents come out tonight, along with the chicken parm dinner that's happening now too. Gosh, I wish we were live. Come on out, down to the chicken parm dinner. I wanted to, well, I guess I should ask if you had any comments or questions about any of the events.
What time is the robotics competition?
It is, I believe it's 8 to 2 on that day at Lenox High School. If you're down in South County and you want to stop by,
Yeah.
that would be great.
I did want to mention too that you kind of touched over it, but I mean, I think it's great that I think you reviewed it early in the year, but that Tara's followed through on the the State Advisory Principals Council. I know it's a better
yeah.
name for that than that, but, you know, I sent out I forwarded an email I received from the state earlier in the fall about asking for principals who wanted to apply to be on that state advisory board, and Principal Burns followed through. I think it's nice to have her voice on that state board, because I think oftentimes we don't have enough representation from Western Mass, and she's been following through and being very diligent, attending those meetings and sessions to, I think it's important. I think she has a good voice to add to those meetings, and it's, just wanted to compliment her for her follow through on that, so that we have Clarksburg represented on that board, so thank you.
Thank you. I think it's been a great learning experience for me, and my hope is that I can bring some insider knowledge back because they are really looking at how they're changing professional development in the state, and they're really looking at what professional learning means. And I think what you'll start to see, based on the conversations that I've been a part of, we'll see a change in some of those PDP requirements in the near future probably, and how the state starts to look at what it takes to you know, what qualifies for professional learning and how that might look. So there are changes on the horizon, but it's top secret, so Tammy can't write about that yet. It's insider information. Okay. So enrollment and thinking about school choice. In April, you all will be voting to open up school choice slots. That's not for this meeting, but I wanted to share with you enrollment numbers just so that you were prepared for that in April. So I have a handout of numbers for you in consideration of what we end up doing. So here's here's what it looks like by grade level. So this is showing our current kindergarten as first graders, current first graders as second graders, and so on. Those big numbers that you see in grades 3 and grade 7 are the double classes that we have. So I just put those two class numbers together to show a total enrollment for next year's 3rd grade and next year's 7th grade. I broke it out just to give you information about current school choice slots, but that's, you know, I think the total in each class is, you know, what we would look at really to consider for next year, what you might want to, what we might want to open. Are there any enrollment questions that I can answer? Does everybody know what that teacher column is?
No, I was wondering.
Yeah, it's not the teacher. It's our
okay.
teacher
Yeah.
policy.
Yes. Yep.
So it's a child who's attached to
Gotcha.
a teacher.
I think it'd be important to look at those numbers as we think about, you know, what our optimum numbers are in our classrooms, because I know we had the recommendation last year from PCG about 22 in a class, you know, but I still think that's a lot, truthfully. And, you know, as we're having budget discussions and talking about resources that are available, you know, being driven by what the town is allocating for us. And we'll have more of those discussions later, but we've had some discussions across our MBSU towns this week with meetings in Savoy and Rowe earlier on Monday and Tuesday this week about how this the policy of our towns to continue level funding our school over the last 5 or 6 years while, you know, fixed costs continue to rise as they always do, is starting to catch up with us. So it's important that you know, we're going to have to advocate with our town for providing the financial resources for our school, because I think we're doing, the staff here does a great job, the administration does a great job of working together to provide a quality education for our kids, but it's becoming more and more challenging at all our schools, and especially here, as each year we're told to level fund. It's just not working. So I think it's important that the towns prioritize the schools and realize that this equation is not working. And, you know, and obviously one of the big challenges of that is the Student Opportunity Act, because, you know, there's a lot of hoopla out there and news about being millions of dollars being spread out across the state, and that's not true. And this commissioner stood up and said before the midwinter meeting, state meeting of the superintendents, that 35 towns are getting 85% of the money, and that's not okay. I think people need to stand up, our representatives need to stand up and let them know that's not okay. And, you know, it's nice that to read about towns getting millions of dollars, and that's great. I think Pittsfield certainly does need $3 million. I'm sure they do, and so does Springfield, and so do all the other areas that are getting it. But it'd be nice if they took just a small percentage of that money, and instead of giving Clarksburg $5,143, which is insignificant as far as our budget goes, and gave us $50,000 or $100,000 so we could afford another a needed school adjustment counselor or a required some of the things that we need for our classrooms. And I think that's something the state has to get their act together on, because the formula is based on enrollment. So we're always going to get the short end of that formula because of enrollment numbers. When if you look at some of the smaller schools, are doing a great job educating students, and I realize the urban areas need some help, but so do we. So we shouldn't be neglected in that process. So I would encourage people to, while the cameras are on, just talk to your representative and tell them they need to talk to and support our area schools, and also talk to your local representatives and tell them that we need to get some more funding for our schools from the town as well, because otherwise we're going to lose on this equation. It's not fair to our kids or our staff. That's my political statement for the night.
Thank you for advocating for us, John. I will just round out by saying I am in the process of forming a bicycle safety committee. I would like to have student, staff, and parent membership. This will go in my email to parents tomorrow to start to see if I can get anyone who's interested in being a part of it, and then I'm going to reach out to students. I want to have a meeting this month to talk about what would it look like to have a policy to bike to school all the time, not just on our Fridays that we have been doing it in May. Florida School has a policy in existence, so I have I have the basis of how one works, and it seems to work well for them, that I can start with, but I'd like to have student input, I'd like to have parent input about what's important in a policy around allowing potentially students to ride their bikes to school at a certain age. So I just wanted to give you a heads up that I would like to bring a policy draft idea to you in April that's crafted by these stakeholders, and see if where we can go with that. We have a bike rodeo happening April 30th. We have our first bike to school event on May 1st. So it would be really nice if we had something that we could start to put in place, you know, that would kick off all of this biking stuff that we're going to do in the month of May, and say, and after your Friday bike, you can also ride on Monday, potentially. So just wanted to give you a heads up on that this is in the works, and I'm interested if anyone has any feedback or thoughts around this.
Do you have an age in mind for when that would start?
So Florida has grades 4 and 8 through 8, involved. They don't have anyone younger than that who is biking to school. I don't know if that would be, I think it's something that we'd have to discuss as a bicycle safety committee and figure out what, how we would want to craft that. I do know we have some younger ones who are really interested in biking below 4th grade, but maybe we just ask for a parent to accompany a student who's in a certain grade span. I think that some of the work that we're going to do, the bike rodeo, will involve some bike safety, and I think bike tune-ups, and I think everyone who comes gets a helmet. So that kind of kicks off some of that awareness about how to ride safely. We have bike safety classes that we do in grades 4 through up, and that's why I think Florida has also said in their policy 4 through 8, because traditionally here we've just done our bike safety classes. We had done them in grades 4 through 8, but we started to do them in earlier grades in the past couple of years because we've had so many younger bikers who wanted to bike, so with parents on our days. So we were having classes in other grade levels too. So yeah, I think it's something to think about.
I just worry about the speed of cars on some of the roads in Clarksburg, as I'm sure others do too, and just, yeah, not having adults out there and any traffic signals really, and just curious how that is addressed, if at all,
Right.
in the study or
Yeah.
in plans. I don't know, but that's just me living on, or right off of the crossroads there and watching cars fly by and not aware at the corners and.
And this could be something that we go to the town of Clarksburg and say, this is something we'd like to try, and could we have some cooperation or support from our chief of police maybe at those times, coming to school, leaving school, when we know we might have bikers, trying this out, at those hot spots.
Yeah.
To make sure we have really, better controlled traffic. That could be one option that I'm just thinking off the top of my head. But I think this is why it's important to have parent
Yeah.
membership in this, to hear those
Yeah,
concerns
it's great to look at.
and to hear where those hot spots are, because I don't know them as well as you all do, so.
Thank you. It's a good access way to get to Stamford and
Yeah.
other towns too, so there's a lot of traffic at times.
At Four Corners. Yeah,
Other places too, I'm sure, but yeah.
right. No, that's a hot spot.
But I think it's a great, I know my kids love that opportunity maybe, and
Yeah. We also talked about at one of the, I think we have several Fridays in May planned for a bike to school day, a whole school-wide thing where we do have police support. And, they ride alongside of us. I mean, you guys know, you've been riding with us. So we talked about how in those scenarios, a lot of times we close off a whole half a lane, and how it's not really teaching kids how to ride on the side. And so we thought about potentially asking if we could have the DPW put some cones out along a stretch of the road coming up here to help kids just really understand that they're riding their bikes on the sides of the roads. They're not, it's great when the police have their lights on and they're escorting us up, but to really practice what it feels like and how they should be riding on the side, so that we're mimicking what we want them to do when we're not there, and teaching them. So I would like to see one of our bike to school rides look like that this year. So that's all I have for you tonight.
I had one question
Yep.
about the school choice.
Yes.
So it's good to kind of look at these numbers and make a decision based on, these raw numbers. But when we're deciding on opening slots, can we get a little information, obviously honoring confidentiality, but like the level of need that is currently in each grade level to kind of give us a better picture in terms of resources available and
Right.
to make a better informed decision, I guess.
I can give you some information for sure about the existing class composition. Is
Correct.
that what you're asking?
That's what I'm asking.
So, sometimes a class of 15 can be way different than a class of 20 in terms of the needs that present themselves in that classroom and the dynamics and the different things. Am I understanding you right?
Correct, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. That would be helpful.
Do you want me to tell you that now or next time?
No, next time is fine. I just, to give us a little more
Yeah.
information, I think would be helpful.
Yeah, I think your class moving into grade 2, actually, which is already at 22, which is already at a high number, is a class that I wouldn't recommend opening slots if they were
Mhm.
even a little bit lower, just off the.
I really only see 2 classes right now that we could consider, I think.
Yeah,
And that's based on, I think is a good question. That Eric's asking is, what's the level of need in those classes too? Because, if they're in that 14 to 16 range like those classes are, would really be wise to leave them alone? Or are there a couple spaces that we could open up in those classrooms? That'll be important to get all the information, just not that, I think the
Yeah.
numbers are a good place to start, but
Yep.
I think some of the determinations are important to make sure we can provide education those kids need.
So would it be useful if I asked teachers of those current classes to sort of do a rating, to provide you with a sense like a 1, 2, 3 sort of rating that described on a spectrum where?
Yeah, I think that would be helpful. Maybe even looking at it in terms of like educational need and social emotional need,
Right,
you know, kind of two broader categories
okay.
that might help us a little bit.
I can develop a scale and I can get teacher input on what the scale is and then ask them to fill out the scale, to bring back to April?
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, that was a good question. Okay, that's all I have.
Something that we passed over the budget item until you were here, Laura, so.
Really?
Yeah. Didn't want to miss out on all that fun, but
Thank you for
um,
discussing that.
we
Wanna go back to that?
should go back to that.
Okay.
We can go to executive session for. Yeah, I think the other items won't take too long, so maybe we could do that. Good suggestion.
So, to new business?
Yeah, because my report basically, I just made my comment earlier about the Student Opportunity Act. I wanted to give you the early preliminary numbers, only indicate we're getting $5,143 for that.
Yeah.
There's also some information that, most of the rest of my information is contained under the merger or building or budget, so I'll just save it for that. As far as the library goes, we do have a meeting set up for Tuesday, March 24th at 5:30 for that safety committee that was recommended to be put together at the select board meeting. Was there a school committee rep that we decided was going to go to that? You're going to, you got the short straw. Okay, so Laura's going to that, and along with, I think for the first meeting I was planning on attending, Jen had offered to be involved, and Tara as well, and there'd be representatives from the select board, library trustees, and the town administrator is going. I also, with the approval of, I talked to Mrs. Lucci on the select board and our town administrator, Rebecca Stone, about asking Bill Ballin to be a mediator for that, and he has agreed to do that. He agreed to do the first meeting pro bono for us to help us get started, and I had a conversation the other day just to give him some background information and let him know, what just everybody's trying to get together and work on some positive solutions and what some of the areas of concern have been. So I think it would really be good to have somebody there that can keep things on track and keep the conversation focused on what the needs are for everyone and how we can work together to make it better for for us sharing this property with the trustees. And what's in the safety issues with the school, and those are things that we really want to emphasize as far as, I think that was one thing in the last meeting that was a little bit, didn't receive as much conversation, was the safety issues that were surrounding that door that leads from the library into the school hallway and security protocols behind that. So we also met with former director in North Adams, Mike Casalio, about he had some conversation with the library, and he offered to come as well to act as a independent voice to help with some of those issues. I think he'd be a really helpful person to have there. And I know there was talk about Trooper Kanata coming, but I know that's going to be, I don't think that's going to happen for him because his schedule, and I don't think that he doesn't view that as his role. His role is to help with school safety, and I think he wants to stay focused on that and not get involved in I think it's a wise decision on his part not to get involved in kind of a local, I don't want to say dispute, but challenge. Conversation, a local conversation, exactly. That would be probably the best way of describing it. So that's where we stand on that. So we're all set for that meeting on the 24th. I think having Bill there to mediate would be very helpful.
Can I add, so staff at the school have been wearing vests to increase safety at drop-off and arrival, and dismissal. And we have implemented a new policy of at pickup time, having 2 cars come up at the same time, just like we do in the drop-off in the morning, which I think has resulted in a faster line even than we've had before. Chief Williams stopped by yesterday and mentioned to me that he has been patrolling the area and has not seen any cars in the road. So that doesn't seem to be an issue, and not that I think it was an issue before, but he's sort of confirmed that he hasn't seen them visibly on the days that he's been at the school. And he has talked to 2 cars about idling too early and have sent them on their way on Wednesday. Since the last time we.
Yeah, I've seen them out there regularly.
Right. So,
Great.
but the road has not been an issue.
Either.
Okay. Just sorry, I just wanted to add that.
Oh, that's great, that's very helpful. As far as the interstate merger proposal, I did receive some communication today from Anna Dontremont from PCG asking about if April 2nd and 3rd work, a Thursday, primarily on a Thursday, the 2nd. I told her I wasn't going to be in town on the 2nd, so I asked her if we could look for maybe some Tuesday, Wednesday type of setting, maybe like a Tuesday night meeting later in April, one of those next 2 weeks if possible. I said that day that they wanted to come on the 2nd is our next school committee meeting, which would have been maybe helpful to have them do the town meeting after our school committee. It's a long night though for all of us, I think. And we have a lot of budget discussions that are going to be ongoing this week or tonight and going into April, so I didn't know if that was good to double up the meetings either on that night. So hopefully I know we can settle on another date for them to come out. They want to do some of the things they've done in the past, talk to some stakeholders they haven't met with yet, and get some more information. We've been ongoing with the weekly conference calls on Friday. Tomorrow we're having a little trouble figuring out a time to talk, but we will get together and have a conversation to try to figure out a date that I can present to all of you to see if it works in your schedules. I know one thing that's a concern with the merger right now is that they had elections in Stanford this week, and Cindy Lamore did not gain re-election. So I mean, Cindy's been a very strong proponent, obviously, of this merger, and been a leader with the interstate committee. So losing her voice as part of that is certainly concerning. And that with that situation,
Can she not remain on the committee?
She
Or does
could.
Not choose to.
I just was told that she wasn't going to remain, but I don't know if that's, I haven't talked to her directly. I was going to reach out to her, but I just haven't had a chance yet since Wednesday morning. So that's, Cindy's been great to work with, and whatever the final decision is, she's certainly been a real positive voice in those talks between Stanford and Clarksburg. So I guess those are the next steps. Conference call tomorrow with the merger group, and try to find a date in April for them to come out here. And I know David Driscoll's going to be planning on coming to that meeting along with Anna and Elizabeth, who always came last year as part of that team as well. One concern I would just bring up, and it kind of leads into our building conversation, and we might get some updates on the building, but we had our conference call last week. We had it moved up to Tuesday. It was myself and Rebecca Stone was in her office calling in, as well as Anna and Mr. Driscoll. So the conversation got into the building issues, and David Driscoll came out here in December and met with all of us on, I think it was December 16th. Took a tour of this school, took a tour of Stanford, and had a nice conversation with us in Tara's office for about an hour about he just wanted to get some background on the merger, just trying to make sure he could be helpful, and it's nice to have his connections as a former state commissioner of education on their team now. So when we had a follow-up conversation, we've had several after that meeting. But we had a conversation last week. He was very vocal about his concerns about the building. He was talking about it's great that some of the improvements that we're making, but he expressed concern about having a safe place for kids to be educated going forward without a plan. So there was more of his comments, but that was really the gist of it, and that led to some conversation about what the merger really needs. And one of the recommendations from the report that PCG did in the spring was to have a long-term capital plan, which we're still working on and trying to get some town approval on as well. So that's a key piece. I think stop that for now and let Jen give an update on the projects that we're doing.
Sure. We had a very busy break. I don't know that this building had a break. We started an entranceway project, which is about at 75%. As you came in, the floor is done, the wall is up. Next week, the new doorway will be open and students can go in and out of that area. And then we'll be moving down towards what I refer to as Mrs. Barnes' doorway. And that will be sealed up and sheetrocked and painted. The lead time on the glass puts us probably a week or two before April break, so we decided we were just going to pause and do the actual glass installation during winter break, so spring break. So when the students come back, they'll have a secure entranceway. So that's just a quick snapshot of the entranceway, but we did a complete abatement and retile of the back stairwell going from the middle school down to the kitchen, as well as this lovely carpet. We had tiles coming up throughout this floor, and we were able to encapsulate them and put in new carpet. So we still have much more to do. Our next round of projects that we're designing is, of course, more abatement work, ADA compliant gender neutral bathrooms, as well as trying to decide what we're going to do with the lift/elevator, but more to follow on that. So we've been very busy. Well, I will tell you, as part of the entranceway projects, there have been some concerns about electrical in the building. So that's something that we're addressing as well.
It's been really wonderful to have Jen leading this project. She was here over the entire February break, and is here almost every day to check on contractors, to follow up and meet with them and make sure everybody's signed off, doing what they're supposed to do, and we're on track. So appreciate the support, and I don't know how we would do this otherwise.
Yeah, just sign up for dedication was that Friday before break started. Everybody, obviously was looking forward to getting some time away, and she was at 11:45 that night, making sure to lock up the building when the abatement crew was finishing up and coming back in the morning. So, this is something that we've taken over from the. We had to take over from the town.
Maybe it wants to be off, I don't know.
So I think those are some, that's why the carpet was laid in this room, because it was, tiles that had been identified as being, having an asbestos issue, and they're fine as long as they're down. When they start popping up and cracking, that's when it becomes a problem. So we did completely clear this room out, and they came in and after consulting with ATC, the plan was to put carpet and to secure underneath, so we didn't have to keep replacing tiles and having that situation. It's kind of similar to what was happening in the teachers' room as well, right before the winter break. So those two areas have been improved and fixed, and that's important for the safety of the building, as well as just looks a lot nicer. So that's a good benefit of it. So
we have the ADA compliance piece going on, and then we're also looking into we're pretty much almost ready to bid out the PA system and the security camera system. And then the third part of that is we're taking the old renovation project and we're updating that with current costs, as well as prioritizing some of the areas that is going to be fixed in that, so we can talk to the town about our next phase of improvements.
Yeah, I would say with Tom and Bob here now, I just wanted to let both of you know, one thing, we're trying to identify priorities for the summer, and we were meeting today with the architect and and Geary builders about how Jen does a weekly project update with them on Thursdays, and at the end of that we discussed our plans with the architect to develop ADA compliant bathrooms that are also gender neutral, utilizing the two faculty bathrooms. One would be for general use for students that would access into this hallway here, and one would be obviously for staff as part of that staff room. But it's going to require, they're both pretty small, so it's going to require some planning and updating to make that happen. And we're also concerned about, I know there's some issues in the past with some of the older plumbing that we have in terms of putting modern, updated fixtures with them. So we're going to rely on their expertise, obviously, to give us some information on what that's going to look like and cost. And we're going to target that for the summer months when we'll shut the building down again. Try to get that done along with, we said, to finish off the safety work with the PA system that actually works throughout the building. We did have some conversation at that select board meeting in February where it was asked if we could go over and take a look at the library, and Jen did that just to while the audio was here, right, to take a look at that. So we did go over during the February break to give them an idea of what it looks like over in the library, and I guess so they can give us some feedback on that they would have to. The library have to pay for their fair share of this. I think that's important because they are making it clear that they're a separate entity, and we have a school budget that's pretty stretched to the max right now. So they need to pay their piece of that if they want to have a security system as well. So we're trying to be cooperative in that way, as we always are. So those are some of our main issues that we're targeting for the summer, because we figure those are some of the bigger projects that we can get done. And the ongoing issues with the lift is and the ADA compliance in that way is becoming very complicated because didn't you get some advice or perspective on the fact that the stairs were too steep to have a lift that went down to the cafeteria? So we've been looking into the option of an elevator, which is obviously very expensive. But because I think because of the age and when those stairs were built, it's a problem to put a lift on them too. So we're exploring all options. Obviously, the elevator we wouldn't put that as part of the exclusion because it would eat the whole thing up basically. But it needs to be addressed because we still can't access the cafeteria gym from the main floor of this building. So there's been a lot of discussions with the architects about how they can make that happen.
Is that the architects mentioned that the stairs were too steep, or who said that they were too steep?
Yeah, it's a rise over run issue.
Yes.
So if we were the thought was that we could put a platform lift from this floor down,
Mhm.
come off, and then go down the last stairwell, but the rise is too high. It doesn't, there's too much. It's not like what you could do in your own house, like put a chair rail in.
Right.
So we've got to think that through a lot.
So that's a challenge, obviously. We're trying to figure out how to make that work.
Just, who told you this?
The architect,
Westall?
yes. So we're looking at, all the options possible.
Because we prefer to do the lift, obviously. That's
Yeah,
that's
I'll call him, see why. I don't understand why a chairlift would matter with the rise and the run and the stairs are. Because the stairs are the stairs and the ramp is a ramp. The
Okay.
ramp's gonna go flat all the way down and up.
It's Bruce Hake who we're dealing with. So
Yeah, I know Bruce.
He's been really helpful.
Oh, they're
So I
great.
would say, yeah. No,
I just need
I'm sure you know him.
clarification.
Yeah.
If you want to
Oh,
talk to
great.
him, he's been great about the whole.
Maybe it's the distance.
Yeah, I don't know. He's more the technical expert. I mean, obviously he's oriented, so you can, if you guys have a conversation, you probably get more
Because
information.
what I wanted to do, Mr. Bono, was where the lift was, just take that floor out underneath and go down.
Mm-hmm.
Where the current lift is, and just blow that floor out and come down, and then take the wall out where,
Right, make an elevator shaft.
right there. Ideally, it would be nice if we could have a lift when you come in off the side, go up or down, but
Mhm.
they said that wouldn't work.
Yeah, because really there are 3 levels, and having that, if there was a shaft right there, that would address all 3 levels with the junior high school level and then this
Mhm.
level and then the cafeteria level, but I know there's some complications with that because of the building, the way it's
Yeah.
Yeah,
situated.
it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
You have to
Right, that's still very
drill on the
costly.
floor and do an elevator pit, and then go up on the roof and do an elevator exhaust.
And, right, and then the question
All
is,
the
where do we
controls.
store all those controls and the mechanicals too? So,
And an elevator, just the maintenance and inspections every year is outrageous, so.
and they're just in their preliminary stages of starting to look at that, so,
Okay.
when you call, just
Yeah,
know
I need
that
to talk
we're,
to him on something.
yeah, that's fine.
We've been prioritizing that because that's a concern. Obviously,
I know.
we don't have, last year we had several issues of staff and student who needed those
No, it's
accommodations.
something we should do.
Yeah, we
No, I
certainly have to
agree.
figure out what we can do, what the building will, what the best plan is for the
And
building.
the
I
lift
guess.
company had they hadn't had any say in how, I thought they said it would work.
I have some old emails prior to my time. I haven't talked to the company since we've been here, since I've been here, so I'd rather go through like design
But
phase
David
and
and
stuff.
that's,
Yeah.
they're doing research. No, I
Right.
agree with that, but this one,
It's like, beyond my expertise, other than a little common sense.
okay. I'll see if I can get some clarification for myself.
Yeah.
Sure.
You probably know we had a little sad news. Rebecca was trying to get the governor's office to come out to tour the building, like we're going to have some kind of open house or whatever. And he refused. He's not going to come out. And I went back through all my notes, and we're sort of in a catch-22, which we all know, is the state isn't going to give us any money to a building that they feel may not be able to be saved. And I just go through the notes. I talked to John Barrett, talked to Adam Hines, talked to Ron Boucher, and they all feel the roof money is not going to be released because we have to show that the town of Clarksburg is willing to save the school. And the discussion's always been, well, what do you mean save the school? Can we renovate it for like a couple $1 million? And I know I said before, make it adequate, and I know adequate's not a good word because we want more than adequate, but can we get by with that? And I get the impression from talking to people that they say, oh no, this school is like beyond renovation. And I personally don't believe that, and I'm wondering if we're all on the same page. I think we are here, and if we're not, please say so. But I'm wondering if the select board, our town administrator, our legislatures are on the same page that we need to go forward and try to save the school. And the best option at this point, in my opinion, is to try to renovate it the best we can. And who knows what the future will bring after that. And I just have been a little disappointed because I don't feel we're on the same page. I feel our legislatures are, and I've even the governor's office feel that they're not going to put money in here. And I feel that they need to be fighting for us, obviously, in order for us to get money. So I don't want to give up, which I never do. But I'm not sure how to go about making people realize on a higher level, and politicians especially, that we do want to save this school. And one reason why this committee started with Tom and Aaron and all the other people is that we always thought there was a disconnect, not only between the school and the people. With the senior center we're going, it's like their own entity. The town garage is their own entity. Town hall is their own entity. The school's their own entities. It's like, no, we are all one. And we were hoping that we could help bring everybody together. And I just don't know where to go from here, because I can't speak for, obviously, the school committee. I can't speak for the select board. We can only just try to help them with what they can do. So if anybody has any advice on what's the next step to try to get the legislatures on board to saying, the town is behind renovating the school, we think we can do it, we know it's going to be a many-year process, but we think $500,000 over the next 5 years, if the state would help us, we could possibly do this. And I don't know how to get the state to show the state that we're doing. I sent, and I think I copied people, I sent Carnivale a letter along with Adam Hines and John Beer about everything we've done so far. And in my opinion, it's like a good first step and an effort to show. And I didn't get responses or anything, so obviously it's not making a difference. So I'm always a positive person. Like I say, I'm not going to give up, but I just feel like I'm running into a dead end. And I need advice and Tom on what we should do to try to make the state and our legislatures understand that this is a worthwhile project and we think we can do it. Or can we? And am I thinking we can, we can't?
I think we're at the point of a decision, truthfully. I think it's, the fixes that we're doing now are all permanent fixes. The safety at the entranceway, this is, whatever is decided by the town going forward, that's a permanent fix for the safe entrance to this building. It's not going to be something that needs to be done over if there's whatever happens next, obviously. That's going to, the fixing these bathrooms, fixing the PA system, or actually just installing a PA system that works in this building these are all permanent fixes for this building.
The boiler system.
Boiler, yes, thank you for the reminder. Boiler is a permanent, long-term fix for this building. The key thing is, there are requirements in terms of, like, this elevator discussion we just had. How do you make this building compliant for what the current federal regulations are for making sure that it's equitable for everybody to access all floors in this building. ADA compliance is a federal regulation we have to adhere to, and I know there are people, and I know that's one of the things that I know Rebecca did reach out to the governor's office, did invite them to come, and they declined. I think the key thing that we're up against is that there are a lot of towns that are asking for money for their school buildings, and Clarksburg was approved for that at one point, and it was turned down, unfortunately. So that plan was turned down. So I think the reality is that the debt exclusion money is going to be used. I don't know if we use this summer, but I would say by the next year it's going to be gone. So we're going to have another couple of years of that money is going to be being paid off by the residents. And truthfully, we get a huge discussion on. We don't need to do that right now. But I think we have to develop a plan of what the town's willing to do, and what could happen to the future of education in this town with this school, because we really are in a bit of a bind right now in terms of what we can do, what we have financially available to be able to do in this building, and what needs to be done. So there's a kind of a disconnect there a little bit, and I think you weren't here earlier. I talked about the Student Opportunity Act. There's a big push across the state there where everybody's getting all this money. Well, we're not. We're getting $5,143. It's the same thing you're talking about. It's not going to help us. It's not going to help us. It won't cover anything. They want us to submit a report to say what we're going to do with it. I want to tell them nothing. We can't do anything with it. Might find some, right. We can put it towards our right, exactly.
And I know it's a matter of opinion. Again, if we need a new school or what the thing is, if people feel we can afford it or not. But I definitely frustrated with the state that they'll give $13 million if we do a new school, but they won't give us a penny for renovation.
Right, well, they have an accelerated repair.
Frustrating.
Right, they have an accelerated repair program, and that covers roofs, boilers, and windows, right? So we already did the boiler part of it. So, we're basically applying for the roof piece of it, and they're saying we don't qualify for that because more needs to be done, that we don't qualify for that program. So they've been, very clear about that. Unfortunately, we don't, qualify. We tried to get that same program for Florida. We've gotten turned down. We're trying to apply for it again this year and see if we can get approved this year up there, but we'll see. We haven't.
Well, and Adam Hines says, like, this is on the legislature for 5 years that we're allowed to go after.
Yeah, it's $500,000
we have to
roof,
prove that we're doing enough in order for them to give it to us, and all we can do is just keep going, but definitely keep track of everything we're doing and the money, because I just feel sooner or later they're going to say they do want to save that school, and we can help out some. So anyway, if you know of anything we can do or together, let us know.
So just a couple of things, Mr. Norcross. I think definitely all the people in this room, I think we are on the same page. We want to save the school. The question is, how do we go about it? And the superintendent and I and Mrs. Barnes have been talking about calling the renovation committee together to talk more in depth. Unfortunately, a night like tonight when we've got the budget facing us, we don't have a lot of time. But if you're willing to do that, we can put you on the calendar for the next couple of weeks. But the question is, what does the taxpayer want to do? And that's a different conversation.
It is. And it's a hard one.
And it's very hard because every time I put a dollar into this building, it's $1 when it could be 40 cents if we were getting reimbursed, and that's hard for me to do. But we're being very selective with areas that we're targeting, and we're being very selective, as the superintendent said, that it's a permanent fix. The reality is the money's going to run out before all of our fixes.
Yeah.
And then what's the next step that the town is willing to do?
And that, again, it's hard. I know the fire chief says in the next few years we're going to need a fire truck, which is like $400,000. The town owns 7 buildings. I mean, 20, 30 years, they're all going to need new roofs. They're all going to need renovation. And that's what's hard. We're all in this together, and there is no easy fix. And it depends, what the taxpayers want to do. I'm afraid that it's gonna be hard, because again, this is my opinion, I feel taxes for a small town like Clarksburg are high already, so it's how much more are we gonna be able to get out of it? I don't know.
I think a key piece of this too is that, I think, I'm gonna go there because I think I have to, is I think there was information put out, and I clearly was not here in 2017, but I think there was information that was put out about how it was gonna impact your tax rate that wasn't actually factual. Tara shared that with us, and we're gonna, at a future meeting, I'd like to share like what, what was shared at that time, what your actual rate is now with this debt exclusion, and what it could have been, and we could have had a project too that wouldn't have been significantly more than what you're paying now. So I know it would go over a much longer term, but so anyway, I think we got to look at this whole thing. I think one of the key things we've had over the last a year and a half or so that I've been around here is that we've had good cooperation from citizens like yourself being involved with this committee. We've had the school committee doing a great job. We've had the select board, and we've had good, honest conversations about what needs to happen. So we come to a solution together. So because all the acrimony that was going on back 3 years ago wasn't going to help anybody. So I think we've all worked together to try to overcome that and to say that we have to work together on these issues to find a reasonable solution that's best for the residents, best for the kids, and best for the town's future. Because otherwise, it's not going to be here in a few years, and we don't want that. So I think, like Jen said it perfectly, we all agree that we want the school to be here. It's just a matter of how do we get there to make sure it is here in 10, 20, 30 years. So,
That's
so that's an important conversation for us to have.
Yeah, and that was another thing that worried me. I feel from talking to Patrick Carnevale when we had a meeting and stuff, they definitely are looking to regionalize. And that hurts us. That hurts all the small towns. And I just wish that they would be more direct and honest and let us know, because are we putting good money into something that they're never going to fund?
We said earlier, one of the big problems with any state formula they use, and I was talking yesterday with the Superintendent Malkus from North Adams, is they're all based on enrollment.
Yeah.
So we lose every time on those enrollment formulas they use, whether it's for the building, whether it's for budget, whether it's whatever it's for, it's always based on enrollment. And so we come out on the short end on that. So the state has to update their formulas that will address rural situations so that we can look at what the needs are of the town and of the school and of the area. Because I think one thing that's very clear is that the kids are getting good education in these small towns, but we're pumping all the money into the big schools that are really struggling. And I know they need help, but so do we.
Yeah, exactly.
So our needs of our residents in our town shouldn't be neglected just because we don't have thousands of students in our school. We have 200 students that really need the help of the state and to keep our school going and to continue the great education they're receiving here. So I think it's important that we're advocating. It's good that you're advocating with Senator Hines, Representative Barrett, and everybody else in the governor's office, because we need people to stand up and say we need fair representation. They're talking about equity. Equity is a big thing across the state, but they're not being equitable in their policies right now.
No, and we have excellent teachers, principal, excellent everything here, excellent education, and yet I feel the state's not backing us, and that's frustrating, but we'll move on.
Maybe a suggestion we can make is that we try to set some time aside after, or as part of the April meeting. We're going to April 2nd as the next meeting. I don't know if that's good for both of you. Maybe we could try to get more people in the renovation group to come and have a discussion about what our options are. I know the select board has some things that they're talking about, and I think we have some budget issues we're trying to work through. So I think that might be a good time for us to have a conversation, like you're saying, to figure out how we can come together. It may not be on the same exact page in terms of perspective, but how can we come together to figure out what's best for the town and the school going forward? I think that long-term plan we talked about has to start.
Has to
start.
It does.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, great, thanks. Appreciate your help.
Yeah, I just want to say also, I appreciate your help, both of you. I mean, you've logged more school committee hours than probably any citizen in this town at this point. I mean, it's been great to have your involvement and to know that on a Thursday, first Thursday of the month, I'm going to look up and see you here. Means a lot. We didn't have that before the vote, so yeah, the vote went how it went, but what has come out of that is more involvement and more cooperation, and it's you bringing that, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys, I think you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
We're trying.
We appreciate everything you guys are doing with us.
Okay, budget?
Executive session, or
Do we have any conversation? I think you have to go into executive session to discuss negotiations and salaries and individual salaries, I guess.
need to go into.
You got,
that
yeah,
after.
have to, do a roll call vote to go into executive session.
For that to, can someone make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we go into executive session.
Second?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yes, Eric did that.
Warwood,
And we will,
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you.